The shifting sands of prevailing culture can certainly be difficult to navigate. How can we avoid the politically correct groupthink that dominates all over society? My next guest has a simple remedy. Revisit the classics. He's the author of a new book, How to Keep from Losing Your Mind, Educating Yourself Classically to Survive Cultural Indoctrination. Here to tell us all about it is editor of thechristianreview.com, Dale Hudson. Now, I want to start with why you wanted to write a book like this. This was a surprising book, I have to tell you. I've read a lot of your books. This felt the most personal, like you were accompanying the reader.
I wanted to write, Raymond, what I've loved all my life. And really what I loved that led me into the Catholic Church. If you recall, I wrote a conversion story. And many of the same themes about beauty, about the appeal of the arts, the importance of fiction and music are in my conversion story, but I decided, it's been a long time. So I decided to, as it were, let it all hang out. I just laid my heart bare in this book. These are the things I love. And in a time when there's so much negativity, I mean, news, front pages, it's all filled with criticism and anger and hatred and accusations. I said to myself, I want to lay out what gives me joy. I want to lay out what makes me wiser. I want to lay out what makes me more human. And so I really dug as deeply within myself as I could, and I came up with this book.
Well, I love the line. You have Socrates quoted inside, and you say, wisdom, or Socrates says, wisdom begins in wonder. And this is kind of filled with artistic wonder, musical wonder, even films. Why now? You talk about a teacher you met early in high school.
He was the janitor.
I know. Well, he ended up being a teacher, but he was a janitor. Yes. Tell that story and how that led you to this book.
I was in the senior play, and I was only there because I wanted to kiss the girl playing Anna.
That's always a good reason.
After rehearsal one night, the janitor asked me to come talk to him. He was a young, very handsome man, and he asked me if I had ever read Plato, and I said no, or Socrates, no. And he said, and he gave me his beautiful Princeton-bound dialogues of Plato. And then he said, and I want you to read these and come back. And when I came back, the first question was, what precedes first, existence or essence? And I didn't realize he was introducing me to the main philosophical and theological issue that I would go on to study for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I did say existence.
Yes.
I got it right.
You got it right. See that? You did. I would have said essence, so that's why you're you and I'm not.
That's why you're a news guy.
That's right. Stick with the essence. The book, How to Keep from Losing Your Mind, about what? Against what? What are we losing our minds to? What you suggest here is somehow the restorative.
Well, we're constantly getting the message that nothing is true, really. Nothing is true.
My truth.
Yeah, my
this
truth,
is my
yours,
truth.
my feelings,
right.
So forth. And we're constantly getting the message that all the traditional morals, all the traditional manners and customs that you and I learned growing up are not necessary to live a good life. In fact, some of them are inherently racist. Some of them are inherently against women. Some of them are inherently a product of white privilege and so forth. And so we're constantly being told that the world you and I and many of your listeners grew up in was completely wrong, and you should tear it up and start over. And I decided to go back, and by relying on the text, the music, the films that have shaped our lives, deeply shaped our lives, and shape us even when we don't know they're shaping us, to go back to those and say to the reader, let's take another look. And the internet has now made all these things and put them right at our fingertips.
Right.
You can basically listen to the entire history of classical music on YouTube. You can get all the great texts of the Western world free. You can download the text on Gutenberg, for example. And then the issue of film, almost everything is available for maybe $6 a month if you go on the Criterion channel. These classic movies that I talk about, including John Ford, The Three Godfathers, the great John Wayne movie.
I saw over the Christmas holiday.
The great David Lynch, The Straight Story, which is an amazing film about forgiveness and the transformation that comes about with forgiveness. I mean, these are things I'm saying, look, give these things a chance. Maybe you left them behind, and they'll just lift you up.
This book is really art as formation, as personal formation.
Yes.
That's really what this is. And you open at one point with Rilke's great poem, who's always been one of my favorite poets. But in this day and age, the value of poetry and its presence has really diminished enormously.
Yeah, and it's too bad because I quote and discuss one of Dana Gioia's great poems about going into a clinic where children are dying. And it's so overpowering. I mean, poetry, as it were, gets past all our defenses, right?
Like music.
Poetry, like music. And philosophers have pointed out the connection between poetry and music. But it gets past us, and it resonates at a deeper level than just straight narrative. And there are lines in your favorite poet, whether it's Chaucer or Shakespeare, who I deal with, or Dante, who I deal with, that just kind of brand you on the heart in a way that you never get rid of.
Yeah, no, I'm one of those foolish people who drive around listening to Shakespeare.
I know you do.
I have the monologues
And probably
playing in my
have
car.
a lot of them memorized.
Well, I do, but there's nothing like it hits you like knives coming at you in different ways, and you never expect it. It's sometimes you're in a moment that day, and that the phrase you thought you knew your whole life will suddenly open up to you. That's the beauty of poetry, music. It cracks our soul open a bit. And
Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love when it alteration finds, nor move with the remover to remove.
Yeah, that's it. And there it is.
I've known that poem for 50 years.
Wow. What's been the reaction? I'm interested in knowing.
Raymond, actually,
because this is really a curated tour through D.L. Hudson's favorite works.
When I handed in this book to Tan, great publisher, by the way, I felt like I was taking a big risk. I had really laid myself open. This was very personal for me. This is what I love. This is what I care about. This is what I consider valuable for other people to look at. I was recommending all this stuff. But the reviews on Amazon and the personal comments that have been made to me, the review on the American Spectator by Frank Buckley, all been amazingly positive. I'm sort of waiting for somebody to come slap me and say, wait a minute,
Stay tuned, D.L. I might get the spirit. No, I won't. The Kindle version I love because it's got all the hyperlinks to either the documents or the music. You can watch Wagner. I mean, that's really the way to experience this via Kindle.
Almost everything I recommend, I have put in hyperlinks either to film scenes from the movies, the entire performance of the music I recommend. I mentioned John Dowland, the great Elizabethan composer, and I give you a hyperlink to a recording of all his songs and so forth. And yeah, I mean, this is one of the great things about living in a virtual world. There's absolutely no excuse not to educate yourself.
Well, what do you say to people? And I'm sure they're out there who say, wait a minute, I got the kids, I have the grandkids, I'm barely making ends meet. It's too late for me. All this stuff is college seminar stuff. You'd say what?
Take some time to yourself. Close the door. Turn off the music. Turn off the phone. Take a half an hour. Take an hour. Pick up a book that you've always wanted to read or you want to reread. Just go do it. And what you find is you come out of that door enriched, you carry joy with you, you have a different look in your eye, and you're really better for all those people that you locked out for half an hour.
Yeah. You know, my old acting coach, Stella Adler, used to say, this platform is important. She would stand on the stage and say, this is where we teach the world what humanity looks like and reminds them of their humanity. And I dare say that is the artist's role. I mean, that's really what we should all be doing, what they should be doing. And that's not always the case today. It's become warped in so many ways with personal agendas and politics and really petty concerns compared to that big mission.
And I address that in the middle of the book. I warn the reader you know, where multiculturalism has led, where postmodernism has led, where radical feminism has led, and basically just saying there's no common human nature. And where there's no common human nature, there's no common human narrative. And the ability to compare books to music, compare films to books, is dependent upon there being a common human nature. And I basically argue, and I think it can't be refuted, that there is a common human nature, even among those who claim there is not.
I love the section on Don Quixote that you go through. There's certain key works that you expand on in the book, and share your own revelations about as you went into them. Tell us about Don Quixote, what you discovered when you came back to it, I guess, or read a biography of Cervantes.
Yes, you know, this happened to me over and over during this book. I went back to books I hadn't read since maybe college or graduate school, like Huckleberry Finn, or
great book.
You know, or The Scarlet Letter. And I would get in about 20 or 30 pages, and I go, "Wow, it's totally new. It's totally fresh. I'm seeing things there that I never saw before. I mean, I was a young man." And in the case of Don Quixote, which I compared to Shakespeare's Winter's Tale, because Shakespeare and Cervantes were contemporaries. The case of Don Quixote, I found someone I kind of identified with. He had ideals. He had perhaps foolish ideals. He had dreams. He revered the past. He revered the past of heroes, of ladies in distress, of knights rescuing them from danger. And I relate to that. I mean, anyone who aspires daily to know more, to find more beauty in life, to be a better person, has got to see in Don Quixote a mirror of themselves.
Yeah, and I love the Sancho Panza revelation. Do you want to share that, or is it too much to give?
Well, with Sancho Panza, you find that
that had totally gone. I have to tell you, and I've read it twice.
Yeah.
I never really saw that until I
in Sancho Panza, you have someone who, first of all, realizes the foolishness of Don Quixote, but totally accepts it, embraces it, and defends it. He knows that he's not that man whom he admires, but he understands that those kind of men need loyalty. They deserve it.
No, it's spectacular. Okay, now I noticed there is no Gershwin, Berlin, or Sinatra. So will that be in the subsequent Great American reads?
Yeah,
how to save your mind, how to keep you from losing your mind in America?
I actually think there ought to be a book that does the same thing, except with the best of American pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost get into that a little bit with some of the films I choose.
With The Godfather.
Yeah, but I think that it can be done not just with the great books. It should be done with these, for example, the Great American Songbook, which involves Sinatra and Nat King Cole and all these guys, Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, and so forth, and my favorite, Jerome Kern.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
But because I think the best of our pop culture brings us to the same place of self-discovery
and humanity
as the classic books.
Yeah, you're back to humanity and the codes and truths that are knitted into the human person that unite us all.
Listen, this book is premised on the fact that all human beings desire God. All human beings, in desiring God, desire the good, the true, and the beautiful. I'm assuming the authors, the composers, the filmmakers, regardless of what they claim they are, possess this desire for God, which was how their art came forth from that desire.
Great deal, Hudson. Thank you for being here. How to keep from losing your mind, educating yourself classically to survive cultural indoctrination by Dale Hudson is available at bookstores everywhere and online.